Welcome back to the channel. It's a lovely day out today. We're outside getting some stuff done. We're doing some spring cleaning. We wanted to take you guys on a bit of a tour around the property and talk about what we have planned this year.
And the first place we're going to start is right over here to our left with the garlic patch. This is our garlic patch right here behind me. It's about 30 feet by 15 feet. Significantly bigger than the garlic patch that we had at our old house. So at our other house, the property was very marshy. It collected a lot of water and it kind of held the water. We successfully grew garlic last year for the first time at that property, and we ended up with 85 heads of garlic, which was amazing given the circumstances over there. This season, we significantly increased the garlic. So typically garlic for us is planted in the fall. You can do a fall plant or a spring plant. For us, we do a fall plant because I just find that the garlic grows better and you get a bigger head. So we planted 585 garlic last year in the fall to be harvested this year and this summer. And it's already, as you can see, all coming up out of the ground. The reason we planted so much is because we had a lot of inquiries last year about being able to purchase our garlic. And last season, we only planted enough for ourselves. This year we planted just under 600, so there'll be lots to offer to anyone who wants it. Plus we'll have enough for ourselves, and then we also should have enough to plant again in the fall for the very next season. Although we're probably gonna have to add to that because I wanna do 1,000 bulbs next year. As you can see, we have a lot of straw down here, and that gets put down once we plant our garlic in the fall. The reason we put the straw on top is to mulch it basically, so you can use leaves or you can use straw. I tend to use the straw, and then I'll take this straw and I'll put it either in the compost or I'll throw it into the chicken coop and they can kind of scratch around with it. But we put it down to kind of protect the garlic through the winter because we do get a lot of snow, we get freezing rain, a lot of water. This is the first garden that we've cut into this property. So this property had zero development whatsoever. There's 6 acres of completely untouched land that hasn't been maintained in I don't even know how long. So we were a bit pressed for time moving here at the end of the season last year. So we had to quickly cut a garden to be able to get the garlic in so that we didn't miss a season. There's actually a video back on our channel about the whole process of cutting this garden. If you want to check that out, I can link it in the description below. But this is the very first garden of our new property and the very first garden of many more for Jeff to cut. And speaking of gardens, why don't we take a look at where we're going to plant all of our gardens this season. So the area I'm standing is approximately just over 100 feet by about 50 feet wide, and this is the area that we're going to be using to plant all of our vegetables this year. This is the lowest point on the property and somehow doesn't actually collect as much water as up top. The land is a lot more flat here and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of rocks. So this is the area that we've chosen to plant all of our gardens. So we'll do vegetables, potatoes, we'll have a separate garden for corn, and we have tons of other things planned for this area. One of the other things we're going to be using this area for is not only growing for ourselves, but also growing enough to have a market garden. And that is something that we're going to show you next up. To my left, you can see that we used to have our chicken tractor over here. Initially, when we moved here, we were using this area to move our chicken tractor around, so it had our turkeys in it when we moved here. But we've decided that this is going to be strictly for growing food, and we're going to be moving our chicken tractor up to a different part of the property. But the next thing I want to show you is where we're going to be putting our store.
So right behind me is where we're planning on putting our little store. We've always had eggs at the end of the driveway, like a little stand. So this basically is just going to be that, but much larger. It's going to have eggs in it, fresh produce. We'll have bread that Holly will bake. She's going to have her soaps in there. And some of the furniture that Holly does will be displayed in there as well. If you don't know that she does that, she also does furniture, which is kind of cool. She's a busy lady. We're going to order the wood in the next week or so. So we'll hopefully have that done within the next month, which will be great. Then we'll have it ready for the summer. Some of the stuff that we'll also have in the store will still be on the website, so make sure you check there as well. And if you've been watching our videos, you've seen that we made lots of syrup this year. It just got posted on the website this morning, so make sure you check below in the description for a link to the website if you wanted to order some. There's also an eclipse today, and we're going to film that as well. We're going to do a little time lapse and incorporate it into our video, so make sure you stick around in the video to check that out later in the video. So now that we've shown you where our store is going to be and you've seen where our gardens are going to go, let's go up and have a look and see where we're going to put our meat birds this year. So this area behind me is where our meat birds are going to go. There's not a lot going on up here. There's a lot of property on this side, probably almost at least 1.5 acres worth of basically just flat grass that we don't have a lot planned for yet. So this part behind me we're going to utilize this year for our meat birds. As you've seen before, we basically just drag them around every day, move them over, and that way they get fresh grass to kind of pick at and they don't have to step in their own poop. So the plan for this year is to do about 50 meat birds and probably maybe 15 to 20 turkeys. So the meat birds and the turkeys are also something that we're going to offer in the store. If you live locally, that's a benefit to you because you can stop by and pick them up. It's not something we'll be offering online. It's just going to be something that we offer to people who live local. You can see just off in the corner here, that little red shack, that's our feed shed. So let's go over there and have a quick look.
This is our feed shed. It's been in a few of our other videos.
You got a bug on your face.
A bug?
Yeah.
What bug?
It's gone. You just got it.
Oh my god. Did you film all that?
Well, yeah. I saw the black speck. I'm like,
Okay.
what is that? Okay, go again. Did you feel it?
When you said it, I felt it crunch into my finger.
There you go.
Ew. This is our feed shed. It's definitely probably been here as long as the house has been here. So this thing's probably over 100 years old, and you can tell its age by looking at it because it's not really in the best shape. Unfortunately for us, it's all we have right now to store our feed. There were no other good structures on the property when we moved here, so we were lucky enough to even have this, to have somewhere to put our feed. The inside of this shed has been in some of our other videos, so you can see that it's separated on one side for our straw and hay, and then the other side is for our feed. We also store some of our things in there for the chickens, such as extra water dishes, heat lamps, the chicken plucker, and other stuff like that. We also have all of our electric fencing in there, which we're going to be putting up later this season. But for now, this is all we have, and it works for us. Our plan with this is to fix the outside of it because the siding is kind of falling apart, and there are some windows that are inside the shed that are old windows from the house, so hopefully we can make some use of those and maybe put them in these holes so that we're able to block the elements out, because we did get some snow in there this season. There's also a big enough stack in there that we're hoping to use some of those windows to be able to build a greenhouse, which I'm not sure if Jeff knows that, but he's going to be building a greenhouse at some point. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Okay, well now you do. We also have plans to move this structure this year, which we'll get into more of why we're going to be having equipment here to move this structure next. That'll be something that Jeff can talk to you about. But our plan is to have this moved over to where the animals are, so it's not such a distance to walk. In the winter, it's a little bit of a trek carrying the buckets and the feed through the snow because the snow is rather deep. And all we have right now is a sled. The sled's not super sturdy. We've definitely lost feed and water all over the yard a couple of times. So we're gonna put that over by the animals, which we'll show you next. And we also are hoping to run water out to that shed so that it makes it a lot easier to water our animals right now. So now that you know what our feed shed's about, let's go take a look at where we're gonna move it to.
So behind me is a large pile of rubble. There used to be an old barn here. They took it down, I think, maybe 4 or 5 months, 6 months before we actually moved in. The previous owner took the barn down, which is kind of disappointing. It would have been awesome to have that barn. It would have been pretty cool to try to maybe fix it up. We like old buildings, if you didn't know that already. The beam that we put inside the house that you would have seen in one of our other videos was from this barn. So basically all that's left of that barn is this giant pile of rubble. We have plans this summer to also get rid of that. We want to do a lot of cleaning up on the property this year. Some of the families that lived here before us did not do a great job at taking care of the property. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of garbage that we've been cleaning up because of them. And also now we have this large pile of rubble to clean up. And the plan for the feed shed is to actually go somewhere in this area where this pile is. And then once that pile's gone, we can move that over there. And as Holly said, it'll be a lot closer for us to feed the animals. Not so much of a walk. It just makes more sense.
If you've been tuning into our channel before, then you know that we moved here at the end of the season last year. So we set up brand new pens and brand new coops for all the animals. When we moved here, it was the end of August. It was incredibly dry and very, very hot. And we were a little bit concerned that we weren't going to have any kind of water here. Joke's on us, because the amount of water here is probably pretty close to the amount of water we had at the old house. As you can see behind us, the pig area is completely saturated. We've already had to move their house once, and we are going to have to move it again. We're going to have to do a little bit of maintenance on their house, probably take it up off the ground a bit and then shingle the outside. They did have a very damp winter in there. We were consistently changing their bedding on a regular basis, and it's just not comfortable for them like that. So we are going to do a little bit of work on this season, and we're also going to do a little bit of work on the coop, which is what I'm going to show you next and talk about why we're going to be changing that up. You can see here there's a lot of claw marks. There's some dirt that's been kind of thrown around, and there's a bit of a hole right here. We have a very bad coyote problem here. I don't know why it's so bad here, or maybe they're just hungry and they know we have chickens now, but the amount of coyotes around here is significantly more than at our other house. At the other house, we did have coyotes, and we did see them in the yard once or twice. But the coyotes are so bad here, they're coming out in the middle of the day, even around 8, 9 o'clock in the morning and mid-afternoon, complete daylight with the dogs outside, and they're still coming over here and trying to pick off the chickens. We've lost probably 25 chickens, and that's on the conservative side. It's probably been more like 35. So we need to do something about this season. We can't keep our chickens locked up all the time. It's just not fair to them to keep them in the coop all the time. And on top of the coyotes, we also have a rat problem.
And the reason why the coyotes have been getting our chickens is they actually fly over the gate. We've put the fence up 6 feet all the way around. They can still fly that high if they really want to. I don't know if they just get bored or what, but they want to come out and they want to roam around, and that's when they get picked off. So always stuff to do around here, and the fencing and the gate it's becoming more of a top priority. Holly was just talking about the rat problem. It's not so bad as it was. They were living underneath the chicken coop. We pulled the floor out, and then they basically went and made their home underneath the goat shack. They were living underneath the goat shack as well as the chicken coop. What we plan on doing is jacking up both the chicken coop and the goat shack. I've already jacked up the goat shack. I put it on a couple 6-inch posts. I've just put them underneath. So it's off the ground maybe 5 to 6 inches. So far that seems to have remedied the problem over there. There's no floor in here, so there's nowhere for the rats to actually live underneath. But around the bottom of the coop, we'll show you in a moment, there's all kinds of little burrowing holes where they're trying to burrow through. The rats have still been trying to burrow underneath. They know that there's food in there. They have actually been eating the chicks. They'll eat the chicks, they'll eat the feed. They will eat the eggs if they can get to them. They're a real problem. So that is the plan for the chicken coop, is to raise it up just like I did to the goat shack. And then hopefully that will fix our rat problem. And we do want to add a floor back into this one because it's a lot easier to clean. When the chickens poop, it's so much nicer to be able to just kind of shovel it out off a nice smooth floor than the hard ground. But as you can see with the rats, they've been burrowing all the way around. There's all these holes around where they've been burrowing in. When I did actually pull the floor out that day, I think we caught there was like 20 rats that we got. There was a bunch of babies, at least 10 or 12, and there was like 10 or 12 adults. The mother, as soon as I pulled out the floor, she beelined it and left her babies behind. She went over to the goat shack. So right now, there's not such a problem with the rats. Right now, the biggest problem is the coyotes, as Holly was saying. But that's homesteading for you, you know. You have to overcome these issues as they come up and just constantly evolving and constantly adapting.
So as you can see, one of our goats, Penny, has had a baby, and that leads me to what I want to talk about next. We really need to separate Vinny from the other goats. One reason is because he's the father of our black goat, Millie, and then he's also the father of our newest goat over here, Lily, and we don't want to crossbreed them. We don't want him breeding with his own babies. That's just not something that we're into. So we would like to separate him. Another reason we'd like to separate him is because it makes it very stressful when the goats are giving birth. He's right up in their business, probably from all the smells and stuff. Another reason we want to separate them is because we want them all to be bred at the same time so that they're all born relatively within the same time frame, so that we only have to bring the vet out here once to do all the disbudding and all the shots. Another reason we want to keep them separate is because I do make soap. So the first bar of soap I actually ever made was a goat milk soap. It was goat milk and honey. So it was made with milk from our goats as well as honey and wax from our bees. And I did want to continue to make that. The only reason I stopped making that is because we didn't have any milk at that time. So keeping the goats separate and being able to breed them at the same time will allow me to have a separate space to be able to milk them undisturbed. So that's another reason we want to keep them separate, because I would like to build up the goat milk soap side of things. More projects, more stuff for Jeff to build, and just there's always something to do around here. And speaking of goat milk soap being made with beeswax and honey from our bees, that's the next place we're going to stop at. We're on our way to the bees, but we decided to make a pit stop and visit Annie. So we do have a few things planned for her this season. She's still way too young to be bred, so we're not going to be getting milk from her for a bit. But we do have some plans for her this season. We are going to be adding a few more little pastures for her. Well, not little, they'll be significant in size, but we are going to add a few more pastures for her so that we can do some rotational grazing. So she'll have this one with her hut in it, and then we'll do, I think, 2 or 3 more separate little sections. They're about a 1/4 acre each, so that we can rotate her from pasture to pasture so she always has fresh grass. Rotate her from pasture to pasture so it's hard to say. So we can rotate her from pasture to pasture so that she always has fresh grass. I can't say it, it's too many S's. The reason we're adding all these extra pastures for her is so that we can rotate her from pasture to pasture. So I can't say it. We're going to rotate rotate her from pasture to pasture so that I literally can't say it. We're gonna rotate her from pasture to pasture so that she's able to have fresh grass all the time. On top of making new pastures for her, we also at some point are gonna have to shingle her hut and paint the outside of it so that it withstands some of the weather a little bit longer. Okay then.
She's got an itchy tail.
Is she looking at her butt?
She's looking at her tail.
Oh, she's seeing her tail. And for anyone wondering why it says Angle, we're assuming they tried to name her Angel at first and wrote it Angle, because I have no idea why it says Angle on her tag. And there's been a few people asking us to take the tags out due to comfort. We cannot take the tags out of her ears. Legally, in Canada, you need to have the tags on a cow if it's leaving its farm of origin. Since she was not birthed here, we had to have the tags on to be able to leave the farm that she came from, so she doesn't even notice the tags are there. That's sharp. Just circling back to breeding her and getting dairy, our plan with her is to be able to eliminate dairy for us from the store. So milk, butter, cream cheese. And with the price of everything in the store these days, it just makes sense for us to be able to have a cow and just get our own dairy. It's just getting too expensive.
And she's a nice pet.
As you can see, when Jeff opened up the hive, there was zero action inside there. And that is because we have some very sad and depressing news. At the end of the season last year, those geese are low. At the end of the season last year, I did a hive check as usual. I treated for mites. Everything was looking fabulous. They had tons of honey stored up for the winter. The hive was very, very healthy. I was feeding them. They were really just ready for winter all around. I came out at the end of the season last year to remove the feeders and completely wrap them up for the winter. And when I took the lid off, there were absolutely no bees to be found. And instead, I found a nest of mice. So we talked about the rodent problem earlier, and the rodent problem is not just an issue for the chicks, but it took over our bees. Part of that was my fault. When we moved them, we did have these wire mesh pieces on the front, 1/4-inch galvanized wire mesh, which were keeping the mice out at the other house. In transition from there to here, I don't know if we forgot to put them back on or they fell off or what happened there. I'm not really sure. All I know is that this was definitely avoidable. If we had had these guards on the front, the mice probably wouldn't have been able to get in, and we would likely still have our hive. And by hive, I should say hives, because we lost 2 initially and we had just this one left. There were no mice in this one. We put the guard back on. Everything was great. One day it was incredibly windy because we get very high winds down here for some reason. And we noticed that the lid had blown off. I don't know how long the lid had blown off for, but when we went out to check that one, the bees were gone out of that hive and there were mice in this one too. So I've already ordered new hives for this season. I pick up 3 new hives, I think in about 3 weeks. This would be our 4th season with bees, and each season is learning. This will never happen again. I am confident in that. It will never happen again, much like some of the errors that happened in the first season that we had bees. Those things will never happen again. As Jeff said, you continue to adapt and overcome the issues that you find on homesteading. Last season was the best season we ever had for honey. I think we ended up with about 50 pounds of honey. So I'm hoping that the hives that we bring in this year are just as well at producing honey as we had last season. And not only just for the honey, but I use the wax out of our hives from our bees to make some of the products that I sell on our website, like the beeswax lip chap or the soap, the lotion bars, the cast iron skillet seasoning, and there's a few other products that use beeswax. And that beeswax is sourced directly from our bees. And without the bees, I don't really have any beeswax. So we're hoping for a great season this year and that they make it through next winter, and then we'll be able to split them again. I ideally would like to split each hive next season and end up with 6. My goal is to have 10 hives, and right now I have 0. So we'll see what this season brings for the bees. That pretty much wraps up touching on all the animals and our plans for them this season, and along with the garden. The last thing we want to talk about is a pond, but I'm going to leave that up to Jeff and he can explain that to you in a moment.
If you watched our previous videos, you'll know that we live across the road from a conservation area. We're higher up, so I thought maybe the property would be, not that wet, but lo and behold, as Holly had said, surprise, surprise, lots of water on the property. So we feel like maybe digging a pond in the area where it's the most wet, maybe it'll help the water stay where it is. So right beside me here, or behind me, is where we kind of want to dig our pond. The plan with the pond is also to move the ducks out of the chicken coop. So once you get the ducks out of there, then basically everybody's been separated. At one point we had everybody together and it was chaos. Since moving, we've just continued to make things more efficient and separate everybody. We're going to continue to do that with the ducks. In Annie's area, there's a little bit of a wet spot back there. We want to dig that down as well, and hopefully it can collect a little bit of water. At one point we were told from the previous owner that there used to be a pond over in Annie's pasture area. We have that planned for later in the summer. We need some of the ground to firm up to get a big machine in here. It's actually Holly's dad. He's got a good sized excavator that we're going to float over here, and he's going to dig us a pond. He's also got a skid steer that we're going to use to like disperse some of that. We'll also use the machinery to get rid of that rubble pile that I was talking about before.
Lots of things planned for this season, and it's crazy to think of the things that we planned for last season. I went back and watched our video of sort of the same video that we're doing right now, our plan for last season at the old house. We had so many plans then, and we did execute most of them. Some of them we didn't because we were moving, but it's just crazy to see kind of where we've, I don't know if increase is the right word, but where we've
come.
Yeah, where we've taken this to, where we came from and where we've taken it to. We had no idea about any of this. It's just, it is, I don't know. I'm looking forward to filming next year's video so that we can see what we're actually doing next year and what we finished this year.
Yeah, Holly said it many times about being intimidated and where to start. Like, you can just start with a few chickens, you know, and like how far you want to take it is how far you want to take it. Holly had a few chickens when we met, and a small, I think it was a 4x8 garden. That was it. And now look at us. So homesteading can be a lot, it can be a little, it can be whatever you want it to be, but it's always good to kind of just take a step back and just, you know, see what you've accomplished. We've accomplished quite a bit. Holly's been killing it with the soaps. We're gonna have our own little store.
I like that you admitted that I had the chickens in the garden first, like I drug you into this whole thing.
Yeah. So with all that being said, that's another video down and done for us. I'm gonna take a few moments here. The eclipse thing is coming, so I'm gonna set up the tripod and the time lapse for that, which would be pretty cool.
This video is done, like Jeff said, and our next one is coming up shortly, and we are going to be processing one of the deer that we got last season at hunting season, so you can stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and syrup season is absolutely finished for us. We just have to take our buckets down and clean up, put our stuff away for the next season. And as Holly said, I think we'll probably end up doing more buckets next year. We appreciate all your support and everything. And yeah, supporting our personal cause there. We appreciate your support, and it's been great. We appreciate it very much, so thanks.
That's it for this video. Time to wrap it up, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye for now.
Bye.